And now they're switching their rotation to a counterclockwise fashion. What's that about? Hey guys, I'm Chris Ignato, and you are watching Nature Now. So today's video is about Canada geese. And I say Canada geese because they're not actually referred to as Canadian geese. Common misconception. Let's get started. We've all seen them before. Those large waterfowl with the brown wings and backs, the white chest, and that characteristic white chin strap with the black head and neck. You know, when I say large, these birds can reach anywhere between 7 and 14 pounds with a wingspan of 5 feet. That's a big bird. Geese thrive in all sorts of habitats. Of course, they like to be drawn near water, but that doesn't keep them from going to parks, golf courses, grassy fields, and manicured lawns. They particularly like the manicured lawns because in the spring when they're feeding their young, that short grass allows them to spot predators from a safe distance. And also, grass is very easy for them to digest. If you look closely, you'll notice the legs on geese are set farther forward than, say, ducks or swans. That allows them to walk on land a lot easier than the other waterfowl. In spring and summer, geese will be found feeding mainly on grasses and sedges and other plants such as skunk cabbage, flowers, and other leafy greens. And as a matter of fact, their beaks and their tongues are specially adapted to cut through those greens. They're equipped with serrated edges. A cool tidbit is back in the day, people used to keep geese and rent the flocks out to cotton farmers so that they can weed their crops. During the fall and winter, they rely more on berries and seeds and various grains. And you've probably noticed before that they're very efficient in removing kernels from dry corn cobs. And as you know, geese will spend almost the entire year gathered together in flocks. Many of the members of those flocks are probably related. The couples will stay together all year, and they select their mates assortatively. That means that larger geese will select larger mates, smaller geese will select smaller mates. The male in a given pair is usually larger than the female. Most Canada geese do not breed until their 4th year. During spring, pairs will break out from the flock and begin establishing their own territories. Geese will build their nests on slightly elevated grounds, of course near water if they can help it, where they can easily spot those predators again or take to the water for safety. They'll often use the same nest site each year. Their nests are composed of grasses, moss, branches, twigs, lined with the soft down and body feathers that they pluck from their own bodies. The female will lay between 2 and 8 large off-white eggs that will hatch within 25 to 28 days. The mother will continuously incubate her eggs. The male also stays behind and defends his mate and the young ones. If he sees something he views as a danger, he'll courageously charge it. I'm sure you've all been there before. They've even been known to charge at full-grown elk. When those eggs hatch, the baby goslings have enough yolk left over to give them nutrition for another couple of days. But believe it or not, they're capable of diving, swimming, walking, and feeding on their own right from the hatching. The goslings will stay with their parents for the entire 1st year, especially if they're from a larger species. Cool thing is, mated pairs will stay together for 20 years. Sadly, they do mourn the loss of a mate, and they'll even mourn the loss of a clutch of eggs. As summer grows older, these birds will become more social, and they'll gather where there's abundant food supplies. If food is scarce, competition might break out among the flocks. Their threat displays may include a lot of pumping their heads up and down or charging at you with their mouths wide open, their tongues raised, honking and hissing at you, wings out, and shaking those feathers. It's a sight to be reckoned with. If 2 geese get in a fight with each other, they'll grab at each other's necks a lot, their chests, they'll smack each other with their wings, and sometimes these fights actually result in injuries. Geese breeding in the northernmost reaches of their range tend to migrate long distances to winter in the more southerly parts of their range, whereas geese breeding in southern Canada will migrate short distances or sometimes not at all. Individuals tend to return to the same migratory stopover in wintering areas year after year. Spring migrating of Canada geese might be a little difficult to track because, well, there's a lot of birds that will overwinter in the same spot, plus they do a lot of their movements from different feeding areas and bodies of water at night. Many people, like myself, will probably look at a pond and see a flock of geese there and say to themselves, oh, those are the same geese as yesterday. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's not the same flock. The previous flock probably left at night and the new flock arrived around the same time. In the spring, coinciding with their mating season, the geese will undergo a molt. This molt will ground them for 6 weeks while the geese await new flight feathers to replace the old ones. They are particularly vulnerable at this time of the year because they can't take to the skies to flee danger. Migrating flocks generally include loose aggregations of family units and individuals in both spring and fall. Migrating birds usually follow the same path every year. These paths are called routes or flyways. Flights usually begin at dusk, but they might begin any time of the day. In favorable weather, these birds can cover 1,500 miles a day, flying at up to 70 miles an hour. But they usually fly around 40 miles per hour and cover about 650 miles in a day. We're not 100% sure on their entire arsenal of navigating tools, but we know they use the sun's position, they can see magnetic waves floating through the sky, and they use landmarks. Flying at night seems best though because it lacks the thermals that interfere with their formations. Geese will fly in that characteristic V shape to reduce wind resistance and also conserve energy. The most experienced flyers will be up front leading the flock, and the second most experienced ones will be the wingmen or women. This formation helps to coordinate speed, altitude, and direction. By the way, the collective noun for a group of geese on the ground is a gaggle. When they're in flight, they're called a skein, a team, or a wedge. And when they're flying close together, they're called a plump. The reason they fly south is not exactly to escape the cold, but is to find areas that are still abundant in their preferred food supplies. And they might also modify some of their waypoints to escape the pressure of hunters. And like people, geese spend a lot of time talking to each other. Believe it or not, the females are the ones with the deeper voice. And a really cool fact is that baby geese will talk to their parents while still in the eggs. They talk whether they're flying, on the ground, or in the water. Speaking of vocalizations, geese have 11 to 13 distinct calls. And a really cool thing is, when they're content, they actually quietly purr similar to cats. If you've watched geese for any amount of time, you've probably noticed they spend a lot of time preening. Actually, there's a gland at the base of their tail called a preening gland, and it excretes this oil that they coat their feathers in that keeps them waterproof and nice and warm. Geese will often form gangs with several other couples and their broods, and they'll share in the babysitting, the guarding of the flock, and protecting their territories. Sometimes, in rare cases, a couple might actually kill another parental couple and take on their brood. I'm not entirely sure why they do this, but maybe it helps the gang afford some prime turf. Like many other birds, Canada geese will never forget a face or a kindness. If you rescue one or give one some food, you've probably made a friend for life. Well, I hope you learned something cool that you didn't already know about geese. I'm sure to bring out a couple more videos on them in the future. Until next time, thanks a lot for watching. I'm Chris Ignato, signing out. Thanks a lot for watching, and remember, if you like this video, be sure to check out this video over here that YouTube has selected specifically for you based on your watch time. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, but you gotta click the bell icon, because if you don't, YouTube will never let you know when a new video of mine comes out. And remember, passion inspires spirit.